Good afternoon, people. This is Mr. Blackburn, broadcasting from the kitchen. I'm making this film because some of you won't be familiar with writing to persuade. So, this is my little lesson on writing to persuade. For some of you, it'll be revision. For some of you, it'll be the first time. Okay, writing to persuade. You are essentially presenting a viewpoint. That's what you think about a particular point of view. And you want other people to agree with you. And therefore you need to be convincing. You need to hit your target audience and you want to get them to agree with you that your point of view, your perspective is correct. So, okay, we are going to focus on this particular task, which is going to be social networking has replaced meaningful friendships. Now, some of you are familiar with these techniques. Well, I'm going to give you a few examples of techniques you can use. You can use withholding information to build up the reader's interest, rhetorical questions to allow thinking to take place, facts and statistics to provide hard evidence, anecdotal evidence, we'll come back to that shortly, and powerful language. You can also use very emotive language as well. Now then, I want to go through the 5 different kinds of paragraphs, which are just here. We start with a bold introduction. Now, with the introduction, you can drop straight into the topic, or alternatively, you can actually swap the order of these around and start off with an anecdotal paragraph. Now, some of you will be going, what, sir, is an anecdotal paragraph? Okay, well, here is a little example for you. Now, an anecdote is a story that you tell, usually a real life story, and it's there to support your argument. It's a short story about something that happens to someone you know or know of. So, what do? They give a personal perspective, they illustrate a point, and they make the reader think about the topic. So, here's an example. A female boss I worked with under years ago, or even a female boss I worked under years ago, didn't like hiring young women. They're just going to get married and move away or have babies. And then we have to give them maternity leave, she would say. This illustrates that women are sometimes also guilty of gender discrimination. So, it's a little story that supports the argument. So, how should you write? Well, consider this. What happens in your little story? When did it happen? Is it relevant? Where did it happen? Is it relevant? Because the only things that you need in your anecdote are the things that really matter. Here is an example. As I've written there, the main point you want to get across is your punchline, the final bit of your anecdote which supports your point. Have a look at this. It's actually a true story, this. 8 years ago, 2 Year 9 pupils in my year group became boyfriend and girlfriend. Nothing unusual about that, I hear you say. However, in this case, the couple was so shy and so set against actually speaking that the relationship was conducted entirely on social media. In short, they simply paid no attention to one another in school, but communicated by MSN when at home. That's a very old-fashioned kind of email. Neither child had well-developed social skills, and experience didn't change either of them. If, on the other hand, they had to speak to each other as there's no other way to communicate, then perhaps they might have become more socially skilled, prepared for the big wide world, as opposed to hiding behind keyboards. So you can see the anecdote supports my argument that social media is damaging for young people. That's an example of an anecdotal paragraph. Now, let's go back to the structure for a second. You can also see the mention there of a ranking paragraph. Now, what's a ranking paragraph? In a ranking paragraph, what you do is, you try not to drop your phone, you take 3 particular ideas and you order them from the least important to the most important. And you can use, bear with me for 1 second, you can use different techniques in order to show the strength of your argument. Okay, here comes a good example. Let's imagine you want to write a ranking paragraph. You can use the phrases in this particular sheet, which I will attach to the task, and they will help you to structure your argument. So, if I was, for example, I'm going to give you a really silly example, but let's say I wanted to persuade you that ice cream was the greatest food imaginable. So I'd need a good argument, a better argument, or I need my best argument. Now I've written there some sentence starters. One benefit that could be a consequence of this is a particular boon may be that. Here we go. One of the most pleasing aspects is that. Okay, well, let's say I could say my first and least powerful argument is that ice cream can make you feel cool on a hot summer's day. So I can start off with, one of the most pleasing aspects is that ice cream could lead one to feel cool on a hot summer's day, bringing down the temperature and relaxing your mood. Okay, now let's say I want a better argument than that, so a slightly more powerful argument could be that the flavour can often bring back beautiful memories. Even better, there could be the potential for the taste of the ice cream to bring back wonderful memories of childhood and the best holidays that you could imagine. Okay, not the best example, but you get the idea. But then you need your most powerful argument. So in this case, it could be, it's simply that it tastes wonderful. The ultimate advantage to be gained in this scenario is the wonderful taste of ice cream. Imagine that beautiful mint chocolate melting upon your tongue. Surely this is the greatest foodstuff known to mankind. Okay, it's a bit of a silly example, but you can see what I mean. I'm just going to scroll down here, and I've given an example here about people comparing football fans to rugby fans, and I'm going to put that on to show my homework. Okay, so I've given you an example of an anecdote, an example of a ranking paragraph. Now, I'm hopefully going to give you an example of what we call a worst case scenario. Or at least I would do, if I could find it. I shall open it. Just a moment. Hopefully. Or not. Okay, we'll come back. We shall come back to that. Back to the PowerPoint. Okay. Now, although on this sheet it says PEA paragraph, don't worry about that. That's not applicable for every kind of persuasive writing. But you will need an intro, which may be the anecdote, a ranking paragraph, a worst case scenario, and most certainly a bold conclusion. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the ideas that you could address. So let's just move over here. These are some of the ideas that you might use to argue that social media is not particularly healthy. Okay, I shall put this PowerPoint on to show my homework as well. But you can see these ideas would suggest that children do spend too much time on it and it's detrimental to their emotional development. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you this amount of time to do the task. You can spend Wednesday's lesson planning it all out, okay, because it's going to be a wonderful piece of work. If any of you are listening to this thinking, I don't completely understand all those paragraphs, drop me a line, let me know. And what I will also do is I will put some example paragraphs up as well. Okay, there's some example paragraphs for a different essay. You'll be able to look at them, but also I'll put up an example of a whole task. Okay, so have a good look at this before you try anything at all. Any problems, drop me a message and show my homework on email. And I wish you all the best. Take care, everybody.